Congratulations, you have just awakened in the year 1800, appointed as the captain of a Royal Navy frigate during the height of the Napoleonic Wars. The positive aspect is that you have attained one of the most esteemed posts available to a gentleman of that time. The negative is that you might not survive your first day. The mild swaying beneath you is not the ease of your modern bedroom, it is the continuous motion of wooden planks as your vessel traverses the Atlantic swells. Your cabin at the stern offers the most spacious accommodation on board, but this fact is misleading. The space is barely sufficient for a small bed, a desk affixed to the floor, and a few storage chests holding your belongings. A lantern swings softly from a ceiling hook, casting shifting shadows across your nautical charts and logbooks. You sit up, your head nearly touching the low beams above. Unlike the cramped quarters where your crew sleeps in hammocks strung just inches apart, you at least possess privacy. But this privacy at sea demands responsibility, the crushing weight of life or death accountability for every soul aboard. A gentle knock interrupts your thoughts. "Captain, sir," calls the voice of your steward. It is 5 bells in the morning watch. The officer of the watch sends his respects and reports fair winds from the southwest. You mumble an acknowledgement, still adjusting to the naval timekeeping system, where each day is divided into watches and time is counted by the striking of bells. 5 bells in the morning watch means it's 6:30 a.m., early, but not by naval standards. Many of your crew have been awake since 4 a.m. Your personal steward enters with a basin of fresh water, a luxury on a wooden vessel where most men will go weeks without a proper wash. The water is slightly warm. Another privilege of rank is heated by placing the metal basin near the galley stove. As you splash your face, you realize this small comfort marks the divide between you and your men. Your steward informs you your uniform is pressed, laying out the elaborate blue coat with gold epaulets and buttons that mark you as a post-captain in His Majesty's Navy. The uniform did not exist until 1748, but now it is a source of tremendous pride and a significant expense from your own pocket. The entire ensemble, from the white breeches to the bicorn hat, is crafted to distinguish you, making you the embodiment of naval authority. You dress meticulously, understanding that appearance is integral to the performance of command. Your crew must perceive in you more than just a man. You must be the living manifestation of discipline, confidence, and control. Any sign of weakness or uncertainty could undermine the delicate structure of authority that keeps nearly 300 men working together in this wooden world. Breakfast is ready in your day cabin, sir, your steward informs you. Cooks managed fresh eggs this morning, another luxury. As your men break their fast on burgoo, oatmeal porridge boiled in water, or ship's biscuits softened in coffee made from burnt bread, you dine on eggs from the ship's small flock, kept in coos on the deck. Your table is set with china plates and silver utensils, carried aboard at your own expense. The contrast between your dining arrangements and the crew's rough wooden trenches was stark. As you eat, your first lieutenant joins you to discuss the day's business. Unlike the common sailors who receive their pay months or years in arrears, you and your officers are gentlemen with means, or at least the appearance of means. Many lieutenants serve on half pay when not actively employed, struggling to maintain the lifestyle their position demands. "We should reach the blockade station by midday if this wind holds, sir," your first lieutenant informs you. The purser's reports indicated 3 months' supply at sea, yet the water in the forward casks is already discoloring. Water, one of your most vital and persistent worries. Stored in wood, it quickly stagnates and spoils. Within weeks, your crew will be drinking water thick with algae and teeming with visible life. This is why the daily rum ration is so crucial. Mixed with water as grog, it renders the foul liquid somewhat palatable. "Very good, Mr. Harrison," you reply, adopting the formal tone expected of a captain addressing his officers. "I'll be on deck shortly." Stepping out of your cabin into the brightness of morning, you feel the immediate weight of every eye turning toward you. The quarterdeck, your domain, falls momentarily silent as the officer of the watch calls out, "Captain on deck." You acknowledge the salutes with a nod, carefully balancing confidence and gravity. Too friendly and discipline suffers, too severe and morale plummets. The delicate art of command is your primary duty. The good news is, your ship is a powerful 38-gun frigate, sleek and fast compared to the lumbering ships of the line. The bad news is, you are responsible for every inch of her, from the condition of her sails to the cleanliness of her hull. Unlike modern military commanders, you personally financed much of her fitting out. All hands rushed to their stations to set sail, the boats bellowing as you gave the order to make way. The ensuing organized chaos proved your crew's rigid hierarchy and training. Men easily scrambled up the ratlines and rope ladders to the yards high above the deck. Others pull on ropes thicker than a man's wrist, their muscles straining as canvas unfurls against the blue sky. You observe everything with a critical eye. A captain who lacks full understanding of his vessel's operation is a liability. You must know when the topmen are negligent in setting the royal sails, and when the gun crews delay in deploying their cannons. When the helmsman allows the ship to drift slightly off course, while you calculate the ship's daily water consumption, how long will the salted beef remain edible even for your crew? What is the rate of illness among your men, and how will that impact your fighting ability? If you encounter an enemy vessel, the ship heels as the wind fills the sails and increases speed. The feeling perpetually stirs your soul, the pure exhilaration of harnessing nature's power via human ingenuity and coordinated effort. Yet you cannot afford to be distracted by the romance of sailing. A Spanish merchant lies on the horizon, and your duty is absolute. As a captain in His Majesty's Navy during the war with France and Spain, you are expected to capture enemy vessels. This is not merely patriotic service, it is how you secure your fortune. In the opening moments, an order is given, and the rhythmic tattooing of the drummer boy sends men scrambling to battle stations. Gun crews prepare by assembling their weapons. Powder monkeys, often boys as young as 10, load cartridges from the magazine, and marine sharpshooters climb to positions in the fighting tops. The positive aspect is that prize money from captured vessels can make you rich beyond your dreams. The negative aspect is that you must risk your ship, your men, and your life to claim it. As your ship closes on the merchantmen, you face your first true test of command. The Spanish vessel is not striking her colors. Instead, gun ports are opening along her side. She is not a merchant at all, but a disguised frigate with more guns than your own vessel. Hard to starboard, you shout, realizing you've been lured into a trap. Ready the larboard battery. The ship heaves dramatically as the helmsman spins the wheel, changing course to bring your own guns to bear. Men grip whatever they can to stay upright as the deck tilts beneath them. In the resulting chaos, you must project absolute calm and confidence, while your mind races through calculations of wind, distance, and firepower. Having been at sea for less than a day, you are already fighting for your life. This is the reality of command in the age of sail: constant vigilance, split-second decisions, and the weight of hundreds of lives resting on your judgment. Stand by. You await the perfect moment for your weapons to exert maximum effect. Timing is crucial. Firing prematurely results in missed shots or insufficient force. Delaying risks, allowing the enemy the advantage of the initial barrage. This is only the first of numerous choices you must make now, concerning navigation, discipline, and the distribution of scarce resources. You'll arbitrate disputes among your officers, inspect the ship for cleanliness and order, review the purser's accounts, and plan your course through enemy-patrolled waters. A captain in the Royal Navy isn't just a sailor. He's a commander, administrator, judge, navigator, tactician, and diplomat, all rolled into one. The good news is that success in this role brings glory, wealth, and advancement. The bad news is that failure brings disgrace, court-martial, or death. As your gun crews wait, their faces tense with anticipation of your command. You feel the full weight of authority settle on you. This moment, with lives at stake, is what distinguishes those who can command from those who cannot. You take a breath, steady your voice, and prepare to issue the order that will unleash chaos. Yet, you wouldn't have come this far, long before reaching the captain's cabin. The brutal path to becoming a naval officer would have shattered most modern individuals. Beginning as a midshipman at just 12, one would have faced years of severe discipline, perilous environments, and intensive training. You would have mastered celestial navigation, identified numerous knots and sail types, and grasped the intricate mathematics of gunnery and ballistics. You would gain the capacity for short naps, to consume any provisions, however unappealing, and to preserve your authority even when fatigued or unwell. Consider the remarkable example of Thomas Cochrane, a Scottish naval captain whose exploits during the Napoleonic Wars became legendary. In 1800, Cochrane was assigned command of HMS Speedy, a small sloop armed with only 14 light cannons. Instead of perceiving this as an insult or a restriction, Cochrane transformed his seemingly minor vessel into a nightmare for French and Spanish shipping. In a particularly bold move, Cochrane engaged the Spanish xebec frigate El Gamo, a ship over 3 times the size of Speedy, with more than 6 times the firepower. Instead of withdrawing from the discrepancy, Cochrane used brilliant deception, flying American colors to get close, then launched a devastating point-blank assault before boarding with his significantly smaller crew. How did he prepare his men for this seemingly suicidal attack? He instructed them to blacken their faces with soot to look more terrifying, psychological warfare in its most basic form. The Spanish, faced with these demonic-looking boarders and confused when Cochrane ordered their colors struck down, surrendered a vessel that by all rights should have destroyed the tiny Speedy. In 13 months commanding this single small ship, Cochrane captured or destroyed 53 enemy vessels, an almost inconceivable record of success that earned him the nickname Le Loup d'Hier, the Sea-Wolf, from Napoleon himself. Cochrane's brilliance as a naval commander was matched only by his difficulty navigating the political currents of the Admiralty. His candid criticism of corruption and his staunch independence generated powerful enemies within the naval establishment. Thus, despite his tactical genius, his career was hindered by his refusal to engage in the necessary political maneuvering for promotion. This was inherent to the position of a captain in the age of sail. Understanding that success depended not only on seamanship but also on ashore connections and conduct. A captain without powerful naval patrons might lack command regardless of skill. The daily reality of command differed greatly from the romantic image of sailing ships, requiring constant vigilance against discipline issues, ranging from minor infractions like untidy uniforms to serious crimes such as theft or desertion. As captain, you were required to maintain order using a system of punishments that defied modern sensibilities. The primary disciplinary action was flogging, involving whipping a sailor with a cat-o'-tails before the assembled crew. As captain, you decided both the offences deserving punishment and the number of lashes to be delivered. Too leniently and discipline might falter. Too harshly, you risked breeding resentment or outright mutiny. You also managed the health of your crew in an era preceding modern medicine. Scurvy caused by vitamin C deficiency was a constant danger during long voyages. Astute captains like Lord Nelson demanded citrus fruits and fresh vegetables whenever feasible, recognizing that their men's health directly impacted the fighting effectiveness of their ships. Even the most luxurious naval vessels offered cramped and uncomfortable living conditions by modern standards. Your crew slept in hammocks so close that they touched when occupied. Privacy was non-existent for ordinary sailors, who performed all bodily functions in full view of their shipmates. Food was monotonous and often unappetizing. Salt beef so hard it required overnight soaking before cooking. The ship's biscuit was infested with weevils, peas, oatmeal and cheese, all washed down with beer or rum-laced water. As captain, you ate better, enjoying fresh meat from livestock kept aboard. Wines, spirits and fresh bread from your personal stores, perhaps even bread baked in your own small oven, were comforts bought at a cost. This cost was both literal, paid by you, and figurative, as it further distanced you from the men you commanded. A captain lived in a curious isolation, maintaining distance from both crew and officers to preserve the mystique of command. You dined alone or with invited guests, a practice that underscored your unique status aboard the ship. The psychological strain of command was likely the heaviest burden a captain bore. Every choice regarding the course, discipline, or imposition carried the potential for life or death. A navigational error could sink the vessel. A poor judgment in combat could result in defeat and loss of life. Furthermore, unlike modern military leaders, you lacked radio, satellite communications, or access to higher command for consultation. Upon leaving port, you were independent, compelled to make choices based on obsolete directives and your own judgment as circumstances evolved. This self-governance constituted both the pinnacle of liberty and the heaviest burden of naval command. Beyond your home waters, you embodied not merely the Navy, but the entirety of Britain. Your decisions held the power to ignite or avert conflicts, fortify or undermine alliances, and bring either prosperity or devastation to your nation's trade. No surprise, then, that naval captains were selected and trained with such diligence, and that so many men desired this demanding post despite its hardships. Command of a king's vessel was among the few routes to glory and promotion for men lacking great wealth or noble lineage. The sun ascends in the sky as your ship and the Spanish frigate draw near to battle range. The wind fills your sails, the deck vibrates with activity, and 300 men await your command. To fight, to flee, or to employ a cunning maneuver that could reverse the advantage against a stronger foe. This was the moment of truth, the crucible where naval captains were shaped. Some succumbed to the pressure, others unearthed reserves of courage and ingenuity they were unaware they held. The great age of sail captains, such as Nelson, Cochrane, and Pellew, appear to flourish during times of crisis, their minds operating with preternatural clarity despite the cannon fire that ripped through the air. Would you seize the opportunity or succumb? Would you gain your crew's respect and the admiral's recognition, or would you become like failed commanders whose careers ended in court-martial or obscurity? The candid truth is that most of us, raised in comfort and accustomed to instant communication, would not survive as a naval captain in the 1800s. We lack the specialized knowledge, the physical stamina, and the mental toughness necessary for such command. Perhaps this gap is why these stories hold such fascination for us. They display human beings operating at the extreme limits of endurance and capability, making life or death choices with scant information, commanding not via technology, but through character and presence. As the initial shots echo across the water, we leave you to consider how you might have fared in that severe cabin, wearing that blue coat with its gold epaulettes, bearing the immense responsibility of command in the age of sail. Would you have been remembered as a captain or a Nelson? Or have you, like so many others, been broken by the immense demands of wooden ships and iron men? The Spanish frigate's broadside thunders across the water, sending plumes of white spray into the air as iron balls splash harmlessly just short of your vessel. You've gained a momentary advantage with your swift change of course, but the battle has only just started. Your own guns remain silent, awaiting the optimal range. Steady, men! Your voice carries across the tense silence of your vessel. Hold your fire until we can see the whites of their eyes. As the distance shrinks, you can distinguish individual figures on the enemy deck. Observe the gunners frantically reloading for a second volley. This is the reality of naval combat in the age of sail, a deadly game of maneuver where victory often depends not on the number of guns, but on the captain's superior tactics and nerve. Fire as you bear. You finally command, and your ship shudders as cannons roar in sequence, each gun firing as it comes to bear on the target rather than in a single broadside. The tactic, unusual but effective, catches the Spanish captain off guard. Instead of a simultaneous blast that might miss entirely, your sequential firepower walks shots across his vessel, maximizing the chance of inflicting damage. The good news is that your initial volley has hit its mark, ripping through the enemy's rigging and sending splinters across their deck. The bad news is that they have turned their bow and are preparing to rake your ship from stern to bow, potentially the most devastating attack in naval warfare. This dangerous interplay of wooden vessels, each pursuing advantage through position and timing, defined the naval battles of the era. Victory hinged not merely on firepower, but on a captain's capacity to outthink and outmaneuver the adversary. This exact brilliance is what made Thomas Cochrane legendary. When Cochrane led the small HMS Speedy against the larger El Gamo, he utilized every aspect of seamanship and psychology. Having closed the distance sufficiently to negate the Spanish ship's gun range advantage, he positioned his vessel alongside the larger ship so closely that the Spanish guns could not depress enough to strike the Speedy's hull. Simultaneously, Cochrane's guns swept the Spanish deck with deadly fire. Yet it was not solely his tactical brilliance that distinguished Cochrane. It was his grasp of the human element in warfare. When his men boarded El Gamo, they encountered a Spanish crew nearly 6-to-1 in numbers. Cochrane's tactic of cutting down the Spanish colors created the illusion that their officers had surrendered. This psychological maneuver proved highly effective, confusing the Spanish and enabling Cochrane's vastly outnumbered force to seize the ship. Such ingenuity was vital for naval commanders, particularly those operating with smaller vessels like Cochrane's. Stretched thin by global commitments, the Royal Navy could not always match the enemy's firepower. Victory often belonged to captains who could improvise, understanding that warfare hinged on morale and perception as much as raw firepower. Your tactical situation grows more desperate as the Spanish frigate manages to cross your stern, her guns now aimed to deliver the dreaded raking broadside. You anticipate that one accurate shot could span the length of your ship, potentially killing many and crippling your vessel. Gunfire roars across the water, transforming your surroundings into smoke, splinters, and pandemonium. Men cry out as iron rips through wood and bodies. A bullet tears through your gun gallery, showering your cabin with wreckage. Another hits a gun carriage, sending it across the deck and crushing sailors under its weight. Damage report, shouting through the clearing smoke, your ears ring from the concussion of nearby impacts. 3 guns dismounted on the starboard battery, reports your first lieutenant, his face streaked with powder smoke, 12 men dead. Minor damage to the main mast, but she remains sound. We are still maneuverable, sir. The good news is that your ship survived the raking fire without catastrophic damage. The bad news is that you are still outgunned and facing a larger opponent like Cochrane. Employ unconventional tactics to reverse the situation. Hard to lord, you command. Discharge the starboard battery and prepare for close engagement. Marines target the officers on the fighting tops. The ship is sustained as the helmsman steers, bringing your vessel alongside the Spanish frigate at point-blank range. At this range, even smaller guns can breach an enemy hull, and the accuracy of Marine sharpshooters on fighting tops platforms high on the masts can sow chaos among the enemy command. This was the reality of naval combat in the Age of Sail, brutally intimate. Unlike modern warfare conducted across horizons, 1800s captains fought close enough to see their opponents' faces and hear their commands carried across the water. It was personal in a way few modern conflicts are, with success or failure resting squarely on a captain's shoulders. The physical demands of combat were matched only by the mental strain of command. A captain couldn't simply issue orders and retreat to a protected command center. You stood exposed on the quarterdeck, a visible target for enemy sharpshooters, maintaining calm and projecting confidence, even as death flew around you. Many captains, including Nelson, carried the marks of this exposed position. Nelson famously lost an arm and an eye in separate engagements before finally succumbing to a French sharpshooter's bullet at Trafalgar. Yet tradition and practicality required the captains to remain visible to their crews during battle. Their presence served as a rallying point for morale. Your Marines begin picking off Spanish officers. The crack of musket fire counters the deeper boom of cannon. Your gun crews operate with practiced efficiency, each man knowing his role in the complex choreography of loading and firing. Upwards of 8 men are needed to effectively operate a single cannon. Some haul the massive gun back into firing position after recoil, others swap out the barrel to prevent premature ignition, and still others load powder and shot. The pace is punishing. A well-trained gun crew might fire 3 rounds in 5 minutes, an eternity when facing an enemy broadside. The physical strain is immense as men struggle against ropes and tackles, inhaling acrid smoke and labor in soaring temperatures as the action persists. Soaked and stained with sweat and powder, they maintain their pace. Load, run out, fire, haul in, swab, and restart. Their captain is down, an officer shouts, observing the disarray on the Spanish quarterdeck through the drifting smoke. They are losing cohesion. This was frequently the turning point in Age of Sail battles. Not the destruction of a ship, but the shattering of its command structure. Lacking clear leadership, even the most powerful vessel becomes vulnerable. Like a chess match where capturing the king ends the game. Naval captains often targeted opponents, knowing that removing a commander could demoralize an entire crew. The Spanish frigate begins to drift, her maneuvers becoming erratic as her chain of command fragments. Seizing the opportunity, you bring your ship across her bow for your own raking fire. The devastating broadside rips through the Spanish vessel, toppling it and silencing several guns. Prepare to board, you command, and your crew draws pistols, cutlasses, and boarding axes. the tools of close-quarters naval combat. Grappling hooks shoot across the narrowing gap between vessels, drawing the ships together as men prepare to leap from deck to deck. The ensuing boarding is chaotic, brutal, and intensely personal. This is not the clean, clinical warfare of button-pushing and distant explosions. Instead, it is men facing each other with edged weapons and primitive firearms, fighting hand-to-hand on blood-slicked decks. The sound is a hellish cacophony of screams, the clash of steel, and sporadic pistol fire. You lead from the front, as is expected of a captain in this era. Your sword flashed as you aimed your boarders at key positions on the enemy ship. The responsibility pressed on you with every move, not merely for victory, but for the lives of your men caught in this chaos. Within minutes, the Spanish crew began to weaken. Their resistance dissolved without unified command. Their first lieutenant, now in charge after the captain's demise, finally struck the colors, the naval signal of surrender. The ship is yours, a prize to be sailed back to a British port and converted to pounds sterling for you and your crew. This, too, was part of a naval captain's reality, the prize system that transformed warfare into a potential source of wealth under the rules of the era. Captured enemy vessels became the property of their captors, with proceeds from their sale divided according to rank. A captain could acquire a significant share, up to a quarter or half of a prize's worth, potentially earning more from a single successful action than from years of standard naval wages. Positively, prize money offered the prospect of making a successful captain wealthy beyond their regular income. Negatively, the system fostered risk-taking, sometimes bordering on recklessness, as captains pursued captures that served both their financial gain and the nation's objectives. Cochrane gained fame not only for his tactical brilliance, but also for his success as a prize-taker, while commanding HMS Speedy. The vessel's captures yielded over $75,000, an astonishing amount equivalent to millions today. This wealth, combined with his noble lineage as the son of the Earl of Dundalk, should have secured Cochrane's standing in naval society. Yet Cochrane's story reveals another facet of 1800s naval command, the influence of politics and patronage. Despite his battlefield victories, Cochrane generated powerful adversaries by openly criticizing naval corruption and refusing to engage in admiral politics. His effective revolutionary tactics and independent demeanor in combat made him an unyielding subordinate. This conflict between merit and affiliation characterized numerous naval careers. Some of the era's best captains remained without commands due to a lack of powerful patrons. While less skilled officers advanced through family ties or political favor, the system yielded both meritocratic heroes and privileged incompetents, occasionally placing men in command for which they were woefully unsuited. With the Spanish frigate secured, your focus shifts to the practical matters following victory. Prize crews are required to be assembled to sail the captured vessel to port. Prisoners must be secured and treated according to the surprisingly civilized rules of naval warfare. Damages to your own ship must be assessed and repaired as best they can be at sea, and the human cost must be accounted for. You are dead to be sewn into hammocks, weighted with shot for burial at sea. You are wounded to be tended in the ship's cramped and primitive sickbay. As captain, you must write to the families of the lost, a duty perhaps heavier than any other command. The ship's surgeon, working below decks, uses crude instruments. Bone saws, probes, and forceps are employed without anesthesia beyond rum or brandy. Amputations are common, performed swiftly to prevent infection. Severed limbs are unceremoniously tossed through open gunports into the sea. Even in victory, a captain faces difficult choices. The prize vessel needs a crew to sail it to port, requiring the division of your own personnel. Transferring too many men to the prize leaves your ship understaffed. However, transferring too few risks losing the valuable capture if the elements are recaptured. There is also the issue of the prisoners. Officers traditionally pledged not to escape, while common sailors might seek refuge in any secure location. The laws of war and naval combat customs require humane treatment. Yet practical constraints arise when managing dozens or hundreds of captives aboard ships already crowded with their own crews. "We have taken 23 prisoners, sir," reports your first lieutenant, including 2 officers. "The Spanish surgeon is treating their wounds alongside our own. This collaboration between opposing medical staff was a civilized element of naval warfare. Surgeons treated the wounded irrespective of nationality and were generally regarded as non-combatants by both parties. Very good, you reply. Have our carpenter assess the prize for seaworthiness. If she can be sailed to Gibraltar, I will assign Lieutenant Murray and 20 men to bring her in. This decision splitting your crew carries significant risk. Your own ship will be unmanned, potentially vulnerable if you encounter another enemy vessel. The prize money from the frigate could separate a life of modest naval service from financial independence for you and your men. Beyond tactics, you must consider the strategic question of your next move. Your Admiralty's orders, given weeks ago, demand you disrupt enemy shipping along the Spanish coast with a single major victory. Do you continue your patrol or secure your valuable prize? Unlike modern commanders with instant communication to headquarters, you must make this decision alone, weighing the national interest against the welfare of your crew and the security of your capture. This autonomy, the famous captain's discretion, was both a burden and a freedom for naval officers of the era. Cochrane's own career demonstrated the double-edged nature of this independence. His aggressive interpretation of orders yielded spectacular successes that advanced British interests, but also caused conflicts with superior officers who favored more cautious methods. This was when he later served Chile and Brazil in their independent struggles. His tactical brilliance was matched by a readiness to take strategic initiatives that sometimes surpassed his formal authority. As the sun sets, casting a golden light on the battle's aftermath, you make your choice. The prize will be taken to Gibraltar with a skeleton crew, while your ship continues its coastal mission. It is a calculated risk, yet one reflecting the bold spirit of the Royal Navy in this age. Evening brings a fleet-wide tradition, the distribution of the daily rum ration. Every sailor receives his allotment diluted with water to make grog. The ritual began in 1655 and continued until 1970, a constant throughout centuries of naval evolution. For many sailors, this moment, marked by the boatswain's call and the cry of up spirits, was the highlight of the day, a brief respite from the monotony and hardship of naval life. As captain, you are not part of this communal ritual. You possess your own supply of spirits in your cabin, another marker of your separation from your crew. This separation affected nearly every facet of shipboard existence. While your crew dined at mess tables, often situated on the deck, you enjoyed meals at a proper table in your cabin, served by your steward with china instead of wooden trenches. Your food, though utilizing the same naval provisions, was enhanced by private stores. Wines, preserves, or even fresh bread baked in your own small oven were available. Furthermore, your perception of time diverged from that of your crews. Ordinary sailors structured their days around watches, 4 hours of duty followed by 4 hours off, preventing any consistent sleep schedule. As captain, you stood no regular watch. Instead, you remained on call at all hours, resting only when circumstances allowed. In your cabin that evening, reviewing reports and planning the next day's operations by the light of a swinging lantern, you embodied the curious isolation of command. Though surrounded by hundreds of men in a wooden world barely 100 yards long, you are fundamentally alone with your decisions and their consequences. This solitude was perhaps the most challenging aspect of command for many naval captains. Even relationships with officers were necessarily limited by discipline and the need to maintain authority. The captain who became too familiar with his lieutenants jeopardized the very hierarchy maintaining the ship's function. Some captains substituted this with pets, like cats to manage the rat population or dogs for companionship. Others adopted eccentric habits or interests to occupy lonely hours. Nelson was noted for his meticulous journals and correspondence, while others became amateur naturalists, artists, or writers during extended voyages. Cochrane was distinguished by his technical pursuits, continually testing innovations in naval warfare. He was an early proponent of rockets and chemical weaponry, which he termed stink vessels, and later contributed to the pioneering of steam propulsion. This inventive drive, combined with his tactical ingenuity, established him as both an effective commander and a challenging subordinate within a resistant navy. As you settle for sleep in your cramped cot, the ship sways softly below. The sounds of the night watch move silently above. Tomorrow presents new trials, charting unknown coastlines, rationing diminishing provisions, enforcing discipline among men who have just tasted triumph, and the prospect of reward. Fortunately, you have already demonstrated the ability to command under duress, securing a major victory against a stronger foe. The unfortunate reality is that leadership demands are relentless. Each day introduces fresh decisions, novel risks, and the perpetual burden of responsibility for lives and mission. This defined naval command in the Age of Sail, a strange blend of absolute authority and crushing responsibility, potential glory and constant peril. It demanded a unique synergy of technical skill, physical courage, and psychological fortitude that few could fully attain. Captains such as Thomas Cochrane became legends not merely for their triumphs, but for embodying a rare blend of qualities. When Cochrane engaged HMS Speedy against El Gamo, a vessel possessing more than 6 times his firepower, he displayed not just courage, but the calculated audacity characteristic of the era's greatest commanders. The victory was nearly foregone. Upon Speedy's initial encounter with El Gamo, Cochrane immediately recognized the peril. Rather than fighting a futile conventional battle, he used a brilliant deception. Hoisting an American flag, he approached as if a neutral ship, buying time until he was close enough to strike effectively. When the fight started, Cochrane placed his small vessel in the larger ship's blind spot, too close for the Spanish guns to depress enough to hit Speedy's hull. This was genius. It demonstrated absolute mastery of naval tactics and the physical limits of wooden warships. The subsequent boarding action revealed Cochrane's grasp of warfare psychology as his outnumbered men used gunpowder to blacken their faces, an early application of psychological warfare. Amidst the chaotic fighting, he ordered the Spanish colors struck down, confusing the defenders about whether their officers had surrendered. These innovative, unconventional, and brilliantly executed tactics exemplified what made some captains legendary, while others were only competent. Cochrane's willingness to abandon convention and improvise solutions for seemingly impossible problems distinguished him, even amidst exceptional naval leadership. However, his story also reveals the constraints of brilliance absent political skill. Despite his battlefield victories, Cochrane's career in the Royal Navy was continually impeded by conflicts with authority. His candid critique of corruption, his refusal to obey orders he deemed unwise, and his independent nature made him an adversary in an institution valuing both competence and conformity. This conflict between the need for initiative in fighting and obedience in the chain of command shaped many naval careers. The ideal captain was expected to display daring and independence against the enemy, yet they were compelled to offer perfect submission to often outdated or impractical orders from superiors hundreds of miles away. Dawn broke with the cry of a sail-ho from the masthead, wrenching you from a fitful sleep. Having barely rested 4 hours, the demands of command left little room for personal comfort. Within minutes, you were on deck, a spyglass focused on the horizon where a smudge of white marked another vessel. "What say you of her, Mr. Pharaoh?" You address the officer of the watch. "It appears to be a brig, sir, Spanish by the cut of her jib, running close to the wind." Another potential prize, yet another decision. Your ship is already undermanned after dispatching a crew to sail yesterday's capture to Gibraltar. Engaging this new vessel means straining your resources further, potentially undermining your capacity to manage your frigate effectively. This was the perpetual calculation of command in the Age of Sail, balancing opportunity with capability, weighing the mission against the practical constraints of men and materiel. Even the most ambitious captains had to recognize when their vessels and crews had reached their limits. "We will follow her for now. You decide. If she heads for a Spanish port, we will intercept. Otherwise, let her believe we have not detected her." Strategic patience was as crucial as tactical aggression for successful captains. Cochrane excelled at observing carefully before striking with overwhelming surprise, employing deception and misdirection to seize opportunities. Your vessel enters pursuit mode, maintaining distance while keeping the Spanish brig in view. Beneath the decks, the routines of naval life persist. Watches shift, meals are delivered, and the endless labor of keeping a wooden ship afloat at sea consumes every available hand. Operating a sailing warship demanded perpetual vigilance. Unlike modern vessels with their mechanical systems and automated controls, everything on your ship relied solely on human strength and skill. Sails required continuous adjustment to compensate for shifting winds. The hull demands routine checks for leaks and damage. Rigging stretches and rubs, necessitating constant adjustment and repair. The sailing master approaches, bowing respectfully. "With your leave, I request to supervise the men at the pumps this morning." This ordinary request underscores another persistent worry: keeping the vessel dry. All wooden ships leak somewhat, the gaps between planks widening slightly when the ship endures heavy seas. The bilge-age pumps, operated by teams of men working in shifts, were the sole barrier between your command and a slow, inevitable sinking. "Very good, Mr. Stevens. Carry on." As he moved to organize the pump crews, you focused on another vital aspect of command navigation. Without GPS, radar, or even reliable charts, plotting a course through often hostile waters required extraordinary skill and constant attention. Your primary tools are the compass, sextant, chronometer, and lead line. Using these simple instruments, along with experience and dead reckoning, you must determine your position and plot a course that avoids dangers while reaching your objective. The margin for error is minimal. A few degree miscalculations in setting course could lead to missing a rendezvous or running aground on an uncharted shoal. The loss of the HMS Association and 3 other ships of Admiral Shovel's fleet in 1707, with over 1,400 men drowned due to navigational errors, serves as a grim reminder of the consequences of misjudging a vessel's position. Cochrane excelled in mastering this navigational challenge. His precise navigation in unfamiliar and perilous waters provided him with tactical advantages unmatched by other captains. While commanding HMS Pallas off the French coast in 1806, he repeatedly exploited his superior knowledge of local waters to ambush French vessels within their own territory, capturing multiple ships during daring raids up the Gironde estuary. By midday, the weather was changing. Dark clouds gather on the horizon, and the sea takes on the leaden hue that experienced sailors recognize as a warning. A storm is brewing. This is another test of your capabilities as a commander. "Mr. Harrison, we have weather coming in. Inform your first lieutenant. Secure all for heavy seas and have the watch stand by to reef topsails. Storms have presented multiple threats to sailing ships. Beyond the obvious hazards of high waves and strong winds, there is the peril of collision in poor visibility, the stress on masts and rigging that risks catastrophic failure, and the difficulty of maintaining course when landmarks and celestial navigation are lost. As captain, your choices when facing approaching weather can determine whether you safely endure the storm or lose your ship. Bearing excessive sail, you risk mast breakage from sudden gusts. Reducing canvas too much risks losing maneuverability at a critical moment. Fortunately, your training and experience prepared you for these dangers. However, nature remains unpredictable and unforgiving of mistakes. "The Spanish brig is changing course, sir," reports your officer of the watch. They appear to be seeking shelter in the bay ahead. This situation presents both opportunity and risk. Following the brig into an unfamiliar bay might allow you to capture her as she seeks refuge from the storm. However, entering unknown waters with a gale approaching could easily result in your ship being driven onto rocks or shoals. "Mr. Stevens, what's your assessment of that bay?" You ask your sailing master, the officer responsible for navigation. "Uncharted in detail, sir," he replies cautiously. "The general charts suggest it is relatively open, yet hidden dangers may exist. With shifting winds, we risk becoming trapped if we proceed too far inland. This is another decision made with incomplete knowledge. This is the daily reality of command in the age of sail. Modern captains use radar for obstacles, depth sounders for shallow water warnings, and engines to evade peril. You have only your judgment and the wind. We will follow her, but keep a distance from the shore." Leadsmen in the chains continuously take soundings. These sailors, responsible for measuring depth by casting weighted lines marked with indicators, act as your eyes beneath the waves, calling out depths as your ship enters the bay. Their practiced voices rise above the increasing wind by the Mark 5, indicating 5 fathoms, or 30 feet of water beneath your keel. The Spanish brig ahead is clearly struggling with the deteriorating conditions. As the wind grew stronger, her crew frantically reduced the sails. Your own ship, better handled by a more experienced crew, maintained control more effectively and closed the distance. This ability to operate effectively in adverse conditions was what separated great captains from merely adequate ones. Nelson's victory at Copenhagen included his willingness to navigate dangerous shallow waters that the Danes believed would protect their fleet. Cochrane repeatedly exploited bad weather, launching attacks when enemies least anticipated. As your ship nears the Spanish vessel, now clearly visible through the rain, you notice confusion on her deck. Her captain, perhaps inexperienced or simply overwhelmed by the weather and pursuit, has allowed his ship to drift dangerously near the leeward shore. In the direction the wind is blowing, she is in bay, sir, your first left lieutenant observes grimly. If her captain doesn't wear ship soon, he'll be on the rocks. Being embedded was a terrifying situation for any sailing vessel caught between an approaching storm and a lee shore with limited options for escape. The Spanish brig's captain now faces an impossible choice: risk capsizing by turning directly into the wind to escape the bay, or continue on his current course and almost certainly be driven ground. As you plan how to capture the vessel, the moral dimension of command arises. These are enemies by the decrees of kings and parliaments, yet also fellow sailors facing imminent destruction. You signal them to surrender. If they strike their colors, we can attempt to assist before they are lost. This blend of military objective and humanitarian concern defined the finest naval officers of the age. While their main task was to fight foes, seafarers shared an unwritten code. All sailors faced shared perils beyond national hatreds. Cochrane exemplified this duality in his career, being fierce in battle, yet showing great care for both his crew and those he defeated. After capturing the Spanish xebec El Garmo, in his famous action aboard HMS Speedy, he paroled many of the captured Spanish sailors instead of confining them in the cramped hold of his small ship, an act of both practicality and compassion. The signal flags rise high on your mast, visible even through the heavy rain, a demand for surrender that is also an offer of salvation. For tense minutes, there was no response from the Spanish brig. Then, as she heeled dramatically in a strong gust, her colors came down. "They've struck her. Confirms your signals, midshipman." "Bring us alongside to windward," you order. "We'll try to take off her crew before she grounds." This rescue operation in deteriorating conditions presents yet another test of seamanship and command. To bring your frigate near the brig for personnel transfer without collision or ground risk demands precise ship handling and steely nerves. The subsequent operation demonstrates your crew's skill and discipline. Small boats are fatally dangerous in these conditions. Therefore, you must position the ships almost touching, close enough for men to jump, yet not so near as to risk damage from the rising seas. Stand by to receive survivors. You call as your ship edges carefully alongside the wallowing brig. "Mr. Murray, take charge of the transfer. Priority to any wounded." Spanish sailors begin making the perilous leap across open water to your deck, fear of drowning temporarily overriding any concern about becoming prisoners. Their captain comes last, tradition demanding he remain until his men are safe. As he steps onto your quarterdeck, soaked and dejected, he offers his sword in formal surrender. This ritual, observed even amidst a howling storm, speaks to the curious blend of civilization and brutality that defined naval warfare in the age of sail. "Your ship is lost, sir, but your men are saved." You tell him in halting Spanish, declining his sword. It is a gesture of respect for an opponent who has surrendered honorably. The Spanish captain nodded grimly, gazing back as his ship drifted toward the rocky shore. Within the hour, the brig struck the ground with a sickening crunch, audible above the storm. The waves immediately began tearing her apart, a stark reminder of how swiftly a proud vessel can be reduced to splinters. With nearly 60 Spanish prisoners aboard, your ship now faces new challenges. Space aboard naval vessels was already critically limited, with crews packed into every corner. Adding prisoners stretches resources to the breaking point. "We must ration food, sir, as your purser recommends." Our provisions were calculated for our own, not 60 extra mouths. Food and water remained constant concerns for naval commanders, particularly when far from friendly ports. Your vessel holds provisions for months at sea, contingent upon careful management. The naval ration was considerable for the era, approximately 5,000 calories daily per man, but comprised mainly of salted meat, biscuit, dried peas, oatmeal and cheese. The most valuable item was fresh water, kept in wooden casks that slowly allowed the contents to grow stagnant and foul-tasting. A typical sailor's allowance was 1 gallon daily for all needs, drinking, cooking and the minimal washing permitted by naval life. Reduce our men's rations by 16 as you see fit. The prisoners will receive 2/3 of the standard allowance. This should suffice for Gibraltar. This decision, like many others in command, balances competing obligations to your own crew, to your prisoners under the customs of war, and to your mission. Being too generous with the Spanish sailors risks weakening your own men or extending crews beyond sustainable limits. Being too harsh violates both humanitarian principles and naval service standards. Cochrane faced similar dilemmas throughout his career, especially during his service in South America, where logistics were frequently strained. His approach blended pragmatism and principle, treating prisoners firmly yet fairly, upholding discipline without excessive severity. As the storm tests the ship and crew through the night, you remain on deck for hours, moving between stations, providing encouragement and correction as needed. This visible presence is vital for leadership during a crisis. The captain's retreat to his cabin during danger rapidly erodes his men's confidence. By morning, the weather had moderated, yet heavy seas still made movement around the ship difficult. You had not slept, subsisting on sporadic cups of coffee brought by your steward. This physical stamina was another facet of command, the capacity to operate effectively despite fatigue, discomfort, and stress. Mr. Harrison, you will address your first lieutenant when dawn arrives. I will rest for an hour, maintain course for Gibraltar, and notify me immediately of any changes. Isa, he responds, understanding both the explicit order and the implicit trust it conveys. This delegation, knowing when to rest and recover while placing temporary authority in subordinates' hands, was another skill that separated effective captains from those who exhaust themselves through misplaced devotion. In your cabin, you collapse fully clothed onto your cot. Your mind continued processing information even while your body craved rest. Sleep arrived quickly, but lightly. A portion of your consciousness remained alert, anticipating the call that might signal new danger or opportunity. This was the reality of command in the age of sail, not merely the dramatic moments of battle and crisis, but the relentless, grinding responsibility that offered no true respite. Even in slumber, a captain remained accountable for his ship and all those on board. Your rest concludes with a soft knock at the door. It is your steward, not an emergency summons. You rise, splash water on your face from the basin, and straighten your uniform before returning to deck. Quiet, sir, reports your first left. Winds are backing to the southwest. Seas are moderating. We should make good progress toward Gibraltar. Very good. Have the prisoners been fed? Yes, sir. The Spanish officers are in the wardroom under guard. Their men are restricted to the forward hold, grouped in small teams for air and exercise. This segregation of officers from common seamen mirrored the era's strict class divisions. Even in captivity, rank and social standing persisted, with officers enjoying privileges denied to ordinary sailors. As your vessel proceeds toward Gibraltar, you now focus on another crucial command duty, the crew's health. The ship's surgeon presents his daily report, a list of injuries, illnesses, and concerns requiring your attention, or at least your awareness. 3 men have fever, he reports. Nothing critical yet, but I am monitoring them closely. 5 injuries from yesterday's action and the storm. 1 serious, a broken arm sustained when Williams was thrown against a gun carriage. I have set it, but he will be unfit for duty for weeks. Disease posed a greater danger to naval crews than enemy action, as scurvy, typhus, and various fevers caused more deaths than cannon fire or starvation. A captain's focus on hygiene, ventilation, and diet could determine whether a crew remained healthy or was decimated by illness. Cochrane was especially mindful of these issues. Understanding that his smaller crews could not absorb the losses that larger vessels could, he mandated cleanliness, ventilation for the lower decks, and supplementing naval rations with fresh food whenever feasible. His ships consistently recorded better health than their peers, which enhanced their superior combat effectiveness. Continue tracking fever cases, you are ordered. If contagion is spreading, we must isolate the infected and wash the deck with vinegar today. The air below is becoming foul. Vinegar was a familiar disinfectant in naval practice, its acidity thought to combat miasmas believed to cause disease. Although germ theory was still decades away, practical experience had guided naval officers to certain measures for containing outbreaks. By noon, another ship appeared on the horizon, bearing British ensigns. As it neared, you recognized it as HMS Thunderer, a 74-gun ship of the line serving the Mediterranean fleet. You order, signal our number and recent action. The flags unfurl, informing the approaching warship of your identity and your engagement of enemy vessels. This encounter emphasizes the isolation of naval command in that era. For days or even weeks, your ship might operate completely autonomously, without any communication with higher authority or other friendly vessels. Then you might suddenly encounter a senior officer who could approve or countermand your decisions, promote or relieve you, praise or condemn your actions. Cochrane experienced this uncertainty repeatedly throughout his career. Though his aggressive actions frequently produced spectacular outcomes, occasionally surpassing his official directives, he became vulnerable to criticism from more conservative superiors. Following his brilliant capture of El Garmo aboard HMS Speedy, he received warm commendation. However, after disputes over tactics during the Battle of Basque Roads in 1809, he experienced professional ostracism despite his objective success. A boat deploys from HMS Thunderer, delivering a lieutenant with messages and possible new orders. You receive him on the quarterdeck with due ceremony, mindful that his report to his captain will influence perceptions of your command. Captain Blackwood offers his compliments, sir, and the lieutenant follows with a salute. He requests an account of your actions for his dispatch to the Admiral and offers any assistance you may need. Thank you, Lieutenant. Captain Blackwood, we have captured 2 Spanish vessels, 1 frigate, sent to Gibraltar as prize, and another lost in yesterday's storm, though her crew was saved. We currently have 60 prisoners aboard, resulting in a slight shortage of personnel. This communication, formal, precise, and carefully framed to present your actions in the most favorable light, is integral to the political dimension of command. Your reputation and career advancement depend not solely on your achievements, but on how those achievements are viewed by superiors. Cochrane experienced difficulty with this aspect of naval service throughout his career. Blunt, outspoken, and impatient with unnecessary formality, he frequently alienated the officers whose support he required for promotion. His tactical brilliance was undermined by a political insensitivity that repeatedly cost him opportunities. Captain Blackwood offers to take the prisoners, sir. He is bound for Gibraltar and has space on the Thunderer. This solves your immediate problem of provisions and space caused by your Spanish captives. However, it means surrendering any claim to prize money for the lost brig, as you lack physical evidence of the capture beyond the prisoners. Thank you, Captain Blackwood, for your considered response. We would be grateful to transfer the prisoners. My first lieutenant will arrange the details. The practical benefits outweigh the potential financial loss, another constant trade-off in command decisions. By afternoon, the transfer is complete. The Spanish sailors and officers are now aboard the larger Thunderer. Your ship feels notably less crowded. The atmosphere below decks improved immediately with the reduction in human density. As the ships prepared to part ways, a signal was sent from Thunderer, a message from Captain Blackwood saying, "Well done, Admiral T will hear of your success." This simple acknowledgement carried significant weight. In the hierarchical world of naval command, such recognition from a senior officer could influence everything from prize court decisions to future appointments. The captain who gained the respect of his peers and superiors was better positioned to obtain desirable commands than one who succeeded in isolation. For Cochrane, this professional respect often clashed with his contentious relationship with authority. Fellow captains and admirals acknowledged his exceptional abilities while often finding him personally challenging. Admiral Collingwood, Nelson's successor as commander of the Mediterranean Fleet, regarded Cochrane as an officer of the first class due to his enterprise, intrepidity, and judgment, but also observed his unfortunate conduct that caused needless conflicts. As HMS Thunderer vanished over the horizon, your ship resumed its course toward Gibraltar. The temporary excitement of the encounter dissolved, yielding to the routine rhythms of life at sea. Yet even these mundane moments require your focus as captain. Your vessel's proper operation relies on countless small details, any of which could prove critical if overlooked. During the afternoon watch, you are inspecting the ship with your first lieutenant and boats. This routine serves several functions, maintaining your command's physical condition, showing attention to the crew, and reinforcing the standards expected in His Majesty's Navy. You begin on the upper deck, inspecting the rigging, guns, and the vessel's general condition. Your eye notes a frayed rope section on the main mast shrouds, the standing rigging that supports the mast laterally. Mr. Perkins, you address the boatswains. That main shroud requires attention before it deteriorates further. Sir, I will have it replaced next watch. While these fine details may seem overly meticulous, the structural integrity of a sailing ship relies on numerous interconnected parts. One single rope failing at the wrong time could cause a mast to fall, crippling the vessel and potentially resulting in loss of life. The captain, by neglecting these details, courted disaster. The inspection proceeds below decks, where conditions grow more confined and devoid of air. The gun deck, where many of your crew sleep in hammocks strung between the cannons, bears evidence of the recent fighting. Scuffs and dents mark the wooden deck, and a lingering odor of gunpowder smoke persists despite attempts to ventilate the area. Have the deck entirely scrubbed again tomorrow, as you ordered, following the practice of cleaning wooden decks with sandstone blocks, and double the airports when the weather allows. Ventilation was a constant issue on wooden warships. Without artificial air circulation, the lower decks rapidly became hot, humid, and foul-smelling from the presence of hundreds of men in confined spaces. Disease spreads rapidly in these conditions, potentially devastating the crew more effectively than enemy action. The orlop deck, the ship's lowest full deck, and situated below the waterline, poses an even greater challenge to inspection. It is dark, even in daylight, requiring lanterns for navigation. It contains the ship's surgeon in his cramped sick bay, along with various stores and functional areas. The surgeon rises from beside a patient as you enter his domain. Captain acknowledges the medical officer's informal manner. The sick bay is sobering, filled with men in crude berths and early 19th century medical instruments, bone saws, torquetettes, probes, and forceps arranged on a small table. When asked about Williams, the sailor with the broken arm, the captain replies, "As well as can be expected, sir." The bone was set clean, but he will require at least 6 weeks before returning to duty. This injury, though minor in naval warfare terms, still constituted a significant loss to your crew. Each man removed from duty, whether temporarily or permanently, intensified the demands on those remaining in combat. These accumulated losses could undermine a ship's effectiveness, even if it remained technically functional. Cochrane grasped this principle, frequently using tactics that protected his own personnel while inflicting maximum damage on the enemy. During his command of HMS Speedy, he consistently avoided conventional broadsides that would have exposed his men to overwhelming return fire, maneuvering instead to strike from positions that minimized his own vulnerability. Your inspection continues into the very bowels of the vessel, to the hold where provisions, water casks, and ballast occupy the lowest spaces of the ship. The air here is noticeably foul with the smell of bilge water, the stagnant mixture that inevitably collects in the lowest points of a wooden ship, adding to the general miasma. The BGE pumps were operated this morning, sir, according to your first tenant reports. Anticipating your concern, 6 inches reported throughout. 6 inches of BGE water is acceptable, a constant reality of wooden ships that leak to some degree at all times. The regular operation of the pumps keeps this water from accumulating to dangerous levels. Yet the scent persists as a constant companion for those who explore the ship's depths. As you ascend to the upper deck, refreshed by air and sunlight, you notice another facet of command, the physical division between captain and crew. While most sailors endured life in the confined, dark spaces below, you now appreciate the relative openness and light of the quarterdeck and your cabin. This division is both practical and symbolic, strengthening the hierarchical structure upon which naval operations rely. The day proceeds with another shipboard ritual, punishment. A young sailor was found asleep on watch during the previous night, a serious infraction requiring redress, As captain, you are both the judge and the executioner, deciding both guilt and the fitting penalty. Peterson, you addressed the nervous sailor brought before you on the quarterdeck. You had been found asleep at your post while on watch. Do you deny this charge? No, sir, he replied, knowing that denial would only aggravate his predicament. Do you grasp the gravity of this offence? In wartime, a man asleep at his post endangers the entire vessel. Yes, sir. I apologize, sir. It will not happen again. The difficult part of command is determining a punishment severe enough to maintain discipline without breaking morale or losing a potentially valuable sailor to excessive harshness. Although the Articles of War technically permit execution for this offence during wartime, most captains reserve such extreme measures for the most serious cases of dereliction, mutiny, or desertion. Therefore, 6 lashes are pronounced after brief consideration to be administered now. This penalty is light by the standards of the time. Some captains might order 2 or 3 dozen lashes for the same offence. Your moderation stems from the sailor's clean record and your command philosophy, which prioritizes proportionality in discipline. Cochrane himself was known for humane disciplinary practices, at least by the standards of his era. While not shying away from punishing genuine infractions, he generally utilized fewer and milder physical penalties than many of his peers. This method fostered exceptional morale and loyalty among his crews, who performed remarkably under his direction. The short punishment ceremony adheres exactly to naval tradition. The ship's company gathers to observe the events, a deliberate feature of naval justice that ensures the example serves its deterrent function. The bosun's mate administers the punishment with a cattail whip, a multi-tailed scourge that leaves distinctive marks on its victims. Even this relatively mild flogging is difficult to watch. The sailor's back quickly shows red welts from the lash. Yet, as captain, you must not only order such punishment, but witness it without visible discomfort. The same authority that grants you command necessitates the obligation to enforce discipline using methods considered barbaric by modern standards. Following the 6th stroke, you issue the order. Cut him down. The sailor is released, and the ship's surgeon briefly checks his back before clearing him to resume duty. Despite the physical pain, the man offers a swift "Thank you, sir," acknowledging what both of you recognize as a lenient sentence by contemporary measures. Dismiss the hands, you command, and the crew resumes its tasks. Although this entire event took under 15 minutes, its effect on discipline will endure much longer. This blend of structured punishment and measured restraint defined the most successful naval leaders of the age. Unlike the stereotypical Captain Blee in popular imagination, the most successful captains strike a balance between discipline and fairness, recognizing that crews perform best when they respect their commanders rather than merely fear them. By late afternoon, your ship has advanced well toward Gibraltar, benefiting from favorable winds that allow a speed of nearly 8 knots. The rhythm of naval life continues around you. Watches shift, meals arrive, routine upkeep continues in the constant fight against the sea's corrosive effects. You seize the chance to review your log and correspondence in your day cabin, the small area next to your sleeping quarters where most administrative work is done. The paperwork of command is substantial. Logs require meticulous maintenance. Letters must be drafted to the admiral reporting actions and captures, inventories checked, and orders composed for your officers. This administrative burden was another facet of command often overlooked in romantic depictions of naval life. A captain was not just a warrior, but also a manager, accountant, diplomat, and cleric, roles demanding literacy, numeracy, and meticulous attention to detail beyond the capacity of many in that era. Cochrane demonstrated exceptional skill in this field. As in many areas, his reports and communications reflected the exact intelligence that underpinned his tactical choices. However, he also resented what he viewed as superfluous bureaucracy, especially when it hindered operational efficiency or allowed corruption among naval officials. As dusk settles, you rise from your documents to notice the wind picking up once more. The sky over windward indicates an approaching weather system. The Mediterranean's notoriously changeable conditions require constant vigilance, particularly near coastlines. Mr. Harrison, you will reef the topsails before dark. I dislike the appearance of that sky. I, sir, will give the order. This preventative measure, reducing sail area before conditions actually deteriorate, exemplifies the foresight essential for successful captains. It is better to temporarily sacrifice some speed than risk damage to the sails or rigging that could compromise the ship's capability more significantly. The complex operation of reefing the tops begins immediately, partially furling them against their yards. Sailors swiftly gather the heavy canvas and secure it with reef points while balancing on the foot ropes beneath the yards. From the quarterly presentation, observe the evolution with critical attention. Any error in this fundamental but essential maneuver reflects upon both the individual sailors and the supervising officers. The speed and accuracy with which a crew manages the sails is perhaps the clearest sign of a well-commanded ship. With the vessel secured for the night and the evening watch established, you join your officers for dinner in the wardroom. One rare chance to socialize with subordinates. This traditional invitation from officers to their captain maintains the delicate balance of authority and collegiality essential for effective command. The wardroom, the officers' communal dining and living space, contrasts sharply with the conditions ordinary sailors endure while eating. While your crew eats in shifts on the gun deck, either sitting there or on sea chests with food in wooden mess bowls, the officers appreciate the order of a fixed table, individual settings, and diverse menus. Gentlemen, you acknowledge upon entry, receiving a respectful reply. The ensuing meal is simple by land standards, but luxurious compared to a sailor's fare. Roasted chicken from ship's livestock instead of salt beef, fresh bread instead of hardtack, and wine instead of grog. These dietary differences, among others, delineated the distinctions between officers and crew, reinforcing the social hierarchy essential for naval operations. Dinner conversations carefully balanced casual and formal, with officers avoiding controversial subjects or criticism that could disrupt discipline. As captain, you remain somewhat set apart even in this environment, included yet ultimately distinct due to your authority. Cochrane was known for maintaining suitable distance while still inspiring loyalty among his officers. He earned respect through proven competence rather than mere formality, forging command teams that operated with exceptional cohesion during crises or combat. Following dinner, you returned to the quarterdeck for a final inspection before retiring. The night delivered as anticipated, with increased winds and occasional rain squalls testing the earlier decision to reduce sail. The officer of the watch reported the ship remained well handled despite the deteriorating conditions. Instruct me if there is any significant change, otherwise maintain course for Gibraltar. This final agenda item implies confidence in your officer's ability to judge significant changes and when to disrupt rest. Excellent captains developed this insight in their subordinates, establishing a command structure that functioned effectively even without direct personal instruction on every decision. Within your cabin once more, your steward assists in removing your uniform coat and boots, small luxuries signifying your privileged status. Nevertheless, as you prepare for sleep, your thoughts remain preoccupied with the numerous responsibilities of command. Will the weather deteriorate further overnight? Is the vessel ready for stormy conditions? How will you manage crew rotation given the diminished numbers after detaching prize crews? What welcome awaits you in Gibraltar, where senior officers may approve or disapprove of your recent actions? This continuous mental strain, the inability to truly release responsibility, even momentarily, was perhaps the gravest part of command. Unlike ordinary sailors who could surrender consciousness completely during their off-watch hours, a captain remained perpetually on call, his subconscious attuned to any change in the ship's motion or unusual sound that might indicate developing problems. Cochrane described this state vividly in his memoirs, noting how years of command had conditioned him to wake instantly at any alteration in his ship's movement or the pattern of activity above his cabin. This acute awareness aided him in a crisis, yet the constant vigilance it demanded proved unsustainable for many throughout their careers. As you drift to sleep, the ship's movement serves as a reminder of your basic situation, a wooden vessel transporting hundreds of souls through an unpredictable environment. Your judgment ultimately determined safety and success. The gentle creaking of timbers, the muffled change of the watch, the distant sound of waves against the hull. These constituted the lullaby of command, simultaneously familiar and sobering. This was the paradox of naval command in the age of sail. ultimate authority paired with ultimate responsibility, the power to order men into battle balanced by accountability for their lives. The sea's romance is tempered by its constant dangers. Few modern individuals, accustomed to shared responsibility and technological safeguards, could adapt to this singular burden. Morning arrives with improved weather and a cry from the masthead that every captain longs to hear. Land is now bearing south by southwest. The Gibraltar Peninsula has come into view, marking the successful completion of your journey. The immense limestone promontory, anciently known as one of the Pillars of Hercules, functions as Britain's passage to the Mediterranean, a crucial naval base controlling access between that sea and the Atlantic Ocean. As your vessel nears, signal flags emerge from the fortress atop the rock, recognizing your approach and guiding you to your anchorage. The harbor below is teeming with maritime activity, featuring warships with the white ensigns of the Royal Navy, merchant vessels from various nations, and the smaller craft serving this busy port. Entering the harbor demands careful ship handling and precise navigation. The narrow waters around Gibraltar, with their shifting currents and limited maneuvering space, have caused many vessels to be lost due to their captain's lack of necessary skill or attention. You personally manage the risk, issuing detailed sail handling orders as your ship navigates toward the designated anchorage. You determine the courses, commanding the lowest and largest sails to be raised. Stand by to drop anchor. Safely bringing a sailing vessel to anchor is one of the most challenging aspects of seamanship. Excessive speed at this critical moment can drag the anchor or snap its cable. When sails are minimized, the vessel becomes susceptible to currents that could push it toward other ships or coasts. With expert accuracy, your team performs the intricate steps, gradually easing the sails, placing personnel at the anchor windlass and readying the heavy anchor for use. As the ship's forward movement slows to the ideal pace, you issue the final command: release. The anchor descends into the harbor water with a huge splash. Its cable emerges through the hawsepipe with a deafening roar that shakes the whole ship. The vessel briefly advances due to momentum, pulling the cable until the anchor grips the seabed below. The ship shudders slightly, then comes to rest in its new location. Secure the harbor, you order, initiating the transition from seagoing to a relaxed posture suitable for a friendly port. Sails are furled neatly, running rigging coiled, and the ship's appearance adjusted to meet the high standards expected in a major naval base. Within minutes of your arrival, a harbor boat approaches, carrying a left-hand man from the port admiral's staff. This is your official welcome to Gibraltar and the bearer of any news, orders, or judgments awaiting you. The captain, a young officer, salutes as he boards. Admiral Thompson sends his compliments and requests your presence in his office at your earliest convenience. He is particularly interested in your report concerning the Spanish frigate. This summons to account for your actions directly to a senior officer exemplifies another facet of naval command: the constant scrutiny from above. Unlike modern military officers who possess clear chains of command and detailed operational orders, captains of the Age of Sail operated with broad discretion, yet remained subject to judgment retrospectively. Thank you, Lieutenant. Please inform the Admiral that I will attend to him within the hour. As the messenger leaves, you begin preparations for this important meeting. Your demeanor and actions before the Admiral will affect not only his evaluation of your recent conduct, but also your future assignments and career prospects. Mr. Harrison, you address your first lieutenant. You have the vessel. I will be ashore to meet the Admiral, prepare the ship's records for inspection, and ensure the Spanish prisoners are ready for transfer to shore facilities. Your specialized vessel, reserved for the captain's use, navigates Gibraltar Harbor's busy waters, its 6 crew members pulling with practiced accuracy. Seated in the stern sheets, dressed in your finest uniform, you prepare mentally for the upcoming meeting. The political aspect of naval command is forthcoming, a domain where maritime triumphs can be negated by inadequate terrestrial display. Upon landing at the King's Steps, the formal entry for naval officers, you are received with due honors by the Marine detachment on duty. This brief ceremony underscores that your position holds not only operational authority, but also symbolic significance. You are in this moment the physical manifestation of your ship and, by extension, of the Royal Navy. Thus, Sir directs a midshipman to escort you to the Admiral's office. Admiral Thompson awaits you. Navigating Gibraltar's narrow streets provides a stark contrast to shipboard existence. After weeks at sea, confined to the wooden world of your command, even this small British outpost appears bustling and chaotic. Civilians and military personnel mingle. Market stalls overflow with fresh produce unavailable at sea, and the sounds and smells of land-based life assault senses accustomed to the more limited environment of a warship. Admiral Thompson's office, a solid stone structure overlooking the harbour, contrasts sharply with your shipboard living. It is vast by naval standards, featuring high ceilings, large windows, and furnishings too extensive for any ship. The Admiral rises from behind a desk, piled with maps and dispatches, welcoming you to Gibraltar. I understand your recent cruise has been eventful. Admiral Thompson embodies the next echelon of the naval hierarchy, an officer who ascended through the same ranks you currently hold, yet achieved the rarefied status of flag officer. His reception establishes the standard by which your recent actions will be judged by Admiral T. Thank you, Admiral, you reply with due deference. We have been fortunate in our encounters with the enemy. This is a detailed debriefing, a complete accounting of your ship's activities since leaving port. The Admiral's questions are penetrating, examining not only what you did, but why you made specific decisions. Did you exceed your orders in pursuing enemy vessels? Were your tactics suitable for the situation? Did you properly balance aggression against the preservation of your command? This accountability was a constant in naval service, with captains expected to justify their actions to superiors who might hold very different views on proper procedure or acceptable risk. Cochrane frequently found himself defending decisions that, while successful in outcome, violated conventional naval doctrine or exceeded the strict letter of his orders. His capture of the Spanish frigate was well executed, the Admiral acknowledges. While engaging a superior force carried a significant risk, the loss of your second prize to the weather is unfortunate but understandable given the circumstances. This qualified approval reflects the typical approach of naval senior officers, acknowledging success without offering praise that could foster excessive boldness in future operations. The Admiral's main focus is not merely individual triumphs, but safeguarding valuable warships and skilled crews. Regarding your future orders, he continues, picking a sealed document from his desk. Once your vessel is provisioned and your crew is fully assembled, you will join Captain Blackwood's squadron operating near Cadiz. The Admiral T anticipates the French might attempt to break their fleet out of Toulon in the coming months, prompting us to reinforce our forces. This assignment, joining a squadron under another captain, signifies both acknowledgement of your capabilities and a reminder of your position in the hierarchy. Your independent actions have proven successful enough to warrant inclusion in a major strategic deployment. Nevertheless, you remain subordinate to more senior officers. Cochrane endured this tension throughout his career. Though recognized for his exceptional abilities, he was often frustrated by the limitations imposed by superior officers whom he deemed less capable or innovative. This conflict intensified during his service under Admiral Gambier at the Battle of Basque Roads in 1809. Despite initiating a daring assault with fireships that offered a chance for a devastating British victory, Cochrane watched in frustrated rage as Gambier failed to capitalize on the advantage, allowing many French ships to escape. The Admiral also reported that your prize has arrived safely. The preliminary assessment by the prize court appears favorable, and you and your crew should receive payment within a few months, provided no complications occur. The prize system used to sell captured enemy vessels and distribute the revenue among the capturing crew constituted a major source of potential income for naval officers. For successful captains like Cochrane, prize money could greatly surpass their regular salary, potentially altering their entire financial situation. Thank you, Admiral. The men will be pleased to hear it. They performed excellently in the engagement. Ensure they remain sharp for the next deployment. Intelligence indicates substantial French movement in the Mediterranean. Nelson anticipates a major fleet engagement. Referencing Nelson, Britain's foremost naval hero and Mediterranean fleet commander, highlights both potential and expectation. The chance to join a decisive fleet action offers glory and advancement, but also demands performance worthy of serving under such a legendary figure. With the formal meeting over, you depart, holding sealed orders and a better grasp of your place in the intricate network of naval politics and strategy. The Admiral's reception was warmly received by senior officers. Your recent successes acknowledged your decisions, generally approving your future assignment with potential for further distinction. Yet as you traverse Gibraltar's twisting streets back to the harbor, you keenly sense how rapidly such favor can vanish. One missed battle, an unlucky defeat, or even the disapproval of a mighty superior could turn your promising post into professional ruin. This instability characterized naval careers in the era of patronage. Even Cochrane, with his remarkable string of triumphs, was exposed to the changing currents of Admiral T's politics. His candid attacks on corruption and inefficiency created powerful adversaries, and his unconventional methods occasionally alienated more conventional senior officers. Back at the harbor, your first lieutenant arrives with a boat to report developments in your absence. "All well with the Admiral, sir?" he inquires, the question carrying more weight than its casual wording implies. "Very well. We will join Blackwood at Cadiz once we have replenished and brought our crew to full strength. What is our current status?" "Water casks are being filled now, sir. The victualling office has promised fresh provisions by tomorrow morning. We have received 12 new hands from the receiving ship, mostly experienced men from vessels paying off. The purser is finalizing the paperwork for our stores. Maintaining the logistics of a warship was a significant part of a captain's responsibilities. Without sufficient provisions, fresh water, and a properly trained crew, the most powerful ship proved useless. It became a floating hulk, unable to complete its objective. Cochrane focused on these practical commands aspects, recognizing that strategic victory hinged on everyday details like adequate supplies and crew makeup. During his command of HMS Palace, he famously seized a Spanish treasure ship full of thousands of dollars in coin, wealth which enabled him to ensure his vessel was properly supplied even when official channels failed. As for the prisoners, you ask, mindful of your duty concerning the Spanish sailors taken in your recent actions. They have been transferred to the prison hulk as ordered. Their officers are currently ashore under supervision. The Spanish captain requested that I pass on his gratitude for your courtesy during the engagement. This professional respect between opposing officers mirrored the peculiar duality of naval warfare in that era. Intense fighting followed by civilized treatment of prisoners under established codes. Captured officers could anticipate parole, granting them relative freedom within defined limits based on their promise not to flee. "Excellent. I will be dining aboard tonight. The surgeon and the marine lieutenant should join us. We need to discuss the new deployment." This casual invitation shows another aspect of command: the selective use of social occasions to build relationships with key officers and conduct business in a less formal setting. The captain who balanced appropriate distance with occasional accessibility generally achieved better results than those who were either completely aloof or inappropriately familiar. The following days unfolded in a flurry of activity as your ship prepared for its new assignment. Fresh provisions were brought aboard: sides of beef, live chickens and pigs, sacks of vegetables and fruit to prevent scurvy during the cruise, and water casks filled with clean water from Gibraltar's springs, replacing the stagnant algae-filled liquid from your previous voyage. New crew members must be integrated into the ship's company. Their abilities assessed, their assignments determined, and their positions in the watch rotation established. Some are experienced sailors who will strengthen your crew. Others are landsmen with limited nautical knowledge allocated by the port admiral to meet required numbers. The physical vessel itself also requires attention after weeks of hard service, as the rigging has stretched and chafed, necessitating adjustment and repair. The hull, constantly battling heavy seas, has developed leaks requiring carpenters to locate and seal them. Canvas sails, aged by sun and salt, necessitate patching or replacement. As captain, you manage this intricate restoration, ensuring your vessel is prepared for future challenges. Your officers manage specific aspects according to their roles. The managing of rigging repairs, the sailing master's supervision of navigation equipment, the gunner's attention to weapons and ammunition, and the purser's accounting of provisions and supplies. This delegation signifies yet another skill vital for effective command. The captain, who tried to personally oversee every detail, would rapidly be overwhelmed by the magnitude of tasks in preparing a warship for sea. Successful commanders, such as Cochrane, recognized the necessity of cultivating competent, reliable subordinates capable of managing their departments with little oversight. A welcome interjection to these preparations is the prize court's preliminary decision. Your seizure of the Spanish frigate has been validated, with an estimated worth that will yield substantial payment to you and your crew upon final ruling. The distribution of these funds adheres to strict formulas set by Admiral T as captain. You will receive 1/4 of the total, a significant amount reflecting your ultimate accountability for the capture. Your officers will share an additional quarter, divided by rank, while the remaining half is allocated to the ordinary seamen and marines. For a prize such as a Spanish frigate, these sums could profoundly change lives. A successful captain could earn more from one capture than from years of regular wages. Ordinary sailors with meager pay might receive sums equal to several years of income from a valuable prize. Cochrane's early career illustrates the financial effect of this system. His daring seizures while commanding HMS Speedy yielded millions in modern currency, building his personal wealth and enriching his crew. This financial motivation certainly fueled the outstanding performance of ships under prize captains. Every sailor recognized that his personal success hinged on successful attacks against enemy ships. On the evening preceding your departure, you host a formal dinner in your cabin for your officers, a tradition signaling the start of a major deployment. The small table is set with your finest silver and china, brought aboard at your own cost. Your steward and cook have prepared a meal far exceeding standard naval fare, supplemented by wines from your private stores. Gentlemen, propose a toast as the meal ends, celebrating the successful capture of Cadiz. The assembled officers, your first and second lieutenants, the ship's surgeon, the marine officer, and the master raised their glasses in response. This moment of conviviality served multiple purposes: building camaraderie among your command team, acknowledging their status as gentlemen and officers, and establishing the tone for the upcoming operational period. Cochrane understood the importance of such gestures in maintaining morale among his officers. Though less formal than many captains of his time, his leadership prioritized professional respect over social distinctions, establishing a command climate where initiative and intelligence superseded rigid adherence to hierarchy. Morning is dedicated to final preparations for departure. The anchor watch has been augmented with extra hands to manage the complex process of weighing anchor and setting sail from a crowded harbor. The pilot, a local mariner with deep knowledge of Gibraltar's waters, has boarded to steer your initial departure through the difficult currents near the rock. Upon your command, all hands immediately order the boats to weigh anchor, his instructions carried by his crew. The ensuing organized chaos shows the exceptional coordination needed to operate a sailing warship successfully. Sailors quickly gather at the ratlines to prepare the furled sails for deployment. Other men manage the capstan, the massive winch that will raise the heavy anchor. Marines take positions as hull sentries, preventing any unauthorized boats from approaching during this vulnerable transition from stationary to mobile. Your position during this evolution is the quarterdeck, where you can observe all aspects of the operation and issue necessary orders. The direction of specific tasks is assigned to your officers. The first lieutenant oversaw the deck. The sailing master monitored course and wind conditions and managed the complex interaction of hundreds of control lines. With anchors secured, the report arrived from forward as the massive iron hook broke free from the harbor bottom. Make sail, you commanded, beginning the carefully choreographed sequence of unfurling canvas to catch the morning breeze. First the topsails, then courses, followed by topgallants as the ship gathers momentum and steering control. The sensation of a ship coming alive beneath your feet, transitioning from a static object to a dynamic vessel, is one of the most profound experiences of command. Modern captains, even of the largest vessels, can never fully appreciate this feeling unique to sailing ships where hundreds of men, acting in perfect coordination, harness the wind's power through acres of canvas. As Gibraltar falls behind, your focus shifts to the impending deployment. Joining Blackwood's squadron means operating within a larger force, presenting a challenge distinct from your recent independent cruising. Your tactical choices will be governed by squadron commander signals and overarching strategy, demanding a different command style. Cochrane often struggled with this aspect of naval service. His independent nature and tactical creativity chafed under the constraints of squadron operations during the Battle of Basque Roads. His frustration with Admiral Gambier's cautious strategy prompted him to act more independently, resulting in significant professional repercussions despite the success of his actions. By midday, your ship has passed the Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlantic opens before you as you set a course for the Spanish coast and your rendezvous with the Blackwood Squadron. The routine of sea service resumes, watches are set, lookouts are posted, gun crews exercise their weapons, the 1,000 daily tasks that keep a wooden warship in fighting condition. Standing on the quarterdeck, surveying your command while cutting through moderate seas under a press of canvas, you embody the unique position of a naval captain in the age of sail. Absolute authority within your wooden world, yet ultimately accountable to distant superiors. Mastering the wind and waves through skill and experience, yet always vulnerable to their unpredictable power, leading hundreds whose lives depend on your judgment, yet fundamentally isolated by command. This paradoxical existence, powerful yet constrained, authoritative yet accountable, central yet isolated, defined the captains who guided Britain's wooden walls through the tumultuous wars against revolutionary and Napoleonic France. Cochrane excelled not only in navigating the physical seas, but also in managing the complex contradictions of command. What made Cochrane exceptional among the era's remarkably capable captains was his unique blend of tactical brilliance, technical understanding, and moral courage. When commanding the small HMS Speedy against the vastly superior El Garmo, he displayed not only daring but innovative problem-solving, positioning his vessel so the Spanish guns could not depress sufficiently to hit her, employing psychological warfare to undermine enemy morale and turning apparent disadvantage into decisive victory. Throughout his career, spanning the Mediterranean, South America, and Greece, Cochrane consistently delivered seemingly impossible results given his resources. This included capturing the fortress of Valdivia in Chile with minimal forces, devastating the Basque Roads with fireships, and systematically dismantling Spanish naval power during Brazil's War of Independence, all demonstrating a military intellect that defied conventional thinking. However, this greatness carried a heavy price. The same independent spirit and moral courage that fueled his battlefield triumphs rendered him a difficult subordinate and a perilous political foe. His candid criticism of corruption in naval administration and prize courts attracted powerful adversaries. His adoption of unconventional tactics alienated more conventional officers. His refusal to accept restrictions placed by less capable superiors repeatedly undermined his career prospects. The 1114 stock exchange fraud case that led to his imprisonment and temporary dismissal from the Royal Navy is still controversial. Although officially found guilty of market manipulation, many historians suspect Cochrane was framed by political adversaries who sought to eliminate a dangerous reformer. His later vindication and reinstatement were too late to restore his position in the British naval establishment, leading to his extraordinary second career commanding the navies of Chile, Brazil, and Greece in their independent struggles. In these foreign services, Cochrane found the operational freedom his nature demanded, achieving results that further confirmed his exceptional abilities and reinforced his reputation for difficult relations with authority. The pattern from his Royal Navy service persisted. While achieving brilliant tactical success, political conflicts restricted his long-term effectiveness. Upon returning to Britain, Cochrane's later years brought vindication. With his rank and honours reinstated in the Royal Navy, he continued his technical innovations, becoming a key advocate for steam propulsion and modern naval design. His 1860 death at age 85 signaled the end of one of the final great naval commanders of the Age of Sail. What lessons can be learned from Cochrane's exceptional career and the demands of naval command in his time? Most importantly, we recognize that effective leadership demands a complex blend of seemingly opposing traits: the courage for bold action coupled with the wisdom to acknowledge limitations, the capacity to trust one's judgment coupled with the humility to admit errors, the fortitude to retain authority balanced by the agility to adapt to change. Few naturally embody this equilibrium. Great mariners of the Age of Sail, including Nelson, Cochrane, Pellew, and their contemporaries, acquired these traits through experience, often learning difficult lessons from early missteps. Their success stemmed not from avoiding mistakes, but from their ability to learn and develop from every challenge. For today's people wondering if they could serve as 1800s naval captains, the truthful response for most would be no, not due to a lack of bravery or intellect, but from unfamiliarity with the specific skills and mindset needed. Mastering celestial and dead reckoning navigation, interpreting wind patterns from subtle wave shifts, diagnosing and resolving issues in complex sailing rigs, and maintaining discipline through both formal authority and personal example. These skills are not easily or quickly acquired. Furthermore, there is the psychological adjustment to command in isolation, making life or death decisions without consultation or technological aid, bearing full responsibility for success or failure without the distributed accountability of modern organizations. Few contemporary individuals have experienced anything approaching this burden of solitary responsibility. The wooden ships that Cochrane and his contemporaries commanded have long since disappeared, replaced by steel vessels powered by engines instead of wind. The specific skills they employed are now historical curiosities rather than practical necessities. Yet the core qualities that made them effective, courage, judgment, adaptability, and moral fortitude, remain essential to leadership in any era. This perhaps accounts for our ongoing fascination with the Age of Sail and its legendary commanders. By studying figures like Cochrane, we see not merely an exciting historical period, but timeless principles of leadership under pressure. Their struggles and triumphs, separated from us by centuries, nevertheless reflect enduring human challenges. Navigating decisions with incomplete data, balancing risk and reward, and leading others ethically are key challenges. As our hypothetical captain sails toward rendezvous with Blackwood's squadron, we reflect on how the age of wooden ships and iron men has passed. Yet the qualities that characterized great captains, what Cochrane termed the true spirit of enterprise, are as valuable and rare today as they were when Britain's survival hinged on the judgment of those commanding her wooden walls against seemingly impossible odds. You likely would not have become a successful captain in the Royal Navy of the 1800s. Acquiring the precise combination of technical skill, physical toughness, mental fortitude, and social awareness requires years spent immersed in that lost world. Yet, by examining the struggles and triumphs of these remarkable people, we may uncover leadership, responsibility, and human potential that resonate across time and speak to us today.